I am William Bryan, and I am your Dragonologist for today. Welcome to Dragonology. Now, yesterday I already gotten a request for an episode, so that is pretty good. Um, so in today's episode, we are going to be talking about Eastern and Western dragons and their similarities and differences, and dare say, even in terms of the comics, versus. So I kind of wanted to try and explore them a little bit more in depth rather than just saying, oh yeah, in Western culture they're viewed as evil while in Eastern they're benevolent. While those are true, it's just so general that it's not very specific, it's not meaty, and it would make for a very short and boring episode. So I tried to delve into their similarities and differences. Now, one thing that we gotta focus on first is their differences. What makes them so different? And then we'll tackle the similarities. And maybe even a theory that I may have come up from my research. So, the differences that you want to major is, many people may not know this, but Eastern dragons are actually very heavily associated with water. I know, right? That's kind of weird. They're usually more serpent-like, not only from their design, but also kind of what their element is. They're mostly depicted as being pretty much guardians of the ocean, guardians of the sea, that they are very water focused, that they pretty much guard lakes, or they are spirits of lakes, or other things like that. While Western dragons are usually depicted to be fire-breathing and in caves. So that is one thing that's very kind of interesting. Western dragons, mostly in closed-off areas, usually in a earthly environment, breathing fire, while Eastern dragons are usually depicted to be in open water or liquefied areas, and being more associated with water, so more free. So one is water, one is earth. I thought that was kind of an interesting concept that I really didn't see coming, that I didn't really know, and it was really fun to kind of look at that and do a little research. So, is that all their differences outside of them being completely different from just their element and their cultural resemblance? Well, even then, most dragon cultures back then did kind of view them as evil, but not all to an extent. There seems to be some kind of study where the Welsh actually praised dragons. The Welsh culture really was all about dragons being good. And even then, there are a few examples in medieval ages that dragons were good. And even then, there was very few depictions of dragons actually just being straight up evil. There's only, again, like, I think it was Skelvic? I might be pronouncing that wrong, so I'm sorry for any Skelvic people. Skelvic, is that how you pronounce it? Anyway, in Skelvic culture, it seems, from my research, that that their evilness comes from a good and an evil. The male usually represents a love for mankind, while the females hate mankind. They're the destroyer of crops. They cause natural disasters, while the males would bring benevolence or happiness to men, like good crops and good weather and all that kind of good stuff. So even then, there does seem to be some kind of Western culture that dragons are not all inherently evil. And even then, when you look at something like Beowulf, an original epic long ago, which was an English tale of basically what was the ideal of man, he ended up killing a dragon, and even in the Beowulf's Bane, which is the name of the dragon, ended up having like this entire treasure cove that he was guarding. And that's one thing about Western dragons that are usually depicted. They're wealthy, they're surrounded by treasure. So it seems like that within Western culture, it's kind of like you slay them and you get rewarded. For Eastern dragon, it seems to be kind of more the opposite. They are necessary. They're basically the guardians of their area, that they are the higher spirits. And one thing that really is also interesting is, I remember long ago from when I did a project on dragons, for Eastern dragons, basically they have to either be near their central birthing area. Like if there's one from Japan, if they travel away from Japan, they'll start losing limbs because they're away from their central homeland, which I thought was kind of cool. So it's kind of like if you see it's kind of like, okay, if there's a fingerless dragon in Japan, then with no limbs or anything, then that would kind of indicate that they're from a foreign Asian country. That's not a Japanese dragon. So that was something I was always interested in. And I'm sorry, had to burp a little bit. But for the Western dragons, there's a lot that just kind of seems to be more in depth. And one thing I kind of noticed as well was in Western culture, there's all different kinds of dragons. There's wyverns, there's the regular dragon, there's lindworms, which I covered yesterday, or last time, but whenever this video comes out. There's all kinds of different kinds of dragons out there. So when I tried studying Eastern dragons, they seem to be very specific and focused on what a dragon is. That there's not variations. A dragon is this. And while I did see that there's a lot of contrast, I wonder what kind of unity do they have? What do they have in common? It just seems so far apart from their cultural resemblance. And even then, one is usually just used as a blaming method, while the other is used as a praising method. But Eastern dragons are praised, while most Western dragons back then were shunned. But while this creature was shunned as well, it does, however, have an interesting concept that I wanted to bring up. The Hydra. Now, whether you think the Hydra is counted in the dragon family, they do have very similarities. They are very serpent reptilian-like. Again, and if you look at Eastern culture, they are both associated with water, and even then, they are known for multiple different limbs. When you cut off its head, it grows more heads. When an Eastern dragon flies closer to the center of its homeland, it gets more limbs or more fingers. So there is sort of this feel that they do kind of grow. That they seem to be able to grow appendages. And that seems to be a very good similarity between the two. Now, whether you think hydras are considered a form of dragon, that's entirely up to you. I think that they do have enough similarities with dragons to be associated, considering that pretty much we don't know exactly how to depict the dragon. And many times, they could just be sort of a flightless, bipedal, crazy thing. I mean, look at the lindworm. Lindworm couldn't fly, was bipedal, it's very serpent-like, and yet could not. Yet was counted as a dragon. So from that, it is kind of hard to just figure out where exactly to pinpoint, because if they were to be turned versus, it definitely seems that Eastern dragons had a more positive cultural resemblance, while Western dragons had a more negative cultural resemblance. When you look at the Eastern dragons, they were more praised, and they were just straight up, yay, they are a resemblance to good and to good. But when you looked at Eastern, they were considered evil, demonic. They spend in caves, and even then, you could argue that's a symbolism of hell, that they are originally hellish creatures in a cave-like environment. They are used to cave-like environments, even though they got giant wings. So that is definitely an interesting subject. But outside of the fact that Eastern dragons are more praised and that they're water elements, the question is, what makes them so different? Because I mean, they are both scaleless creature, and that's kind of it. I know that there's a lot more to it, and I definitely know that there's a lot more fun I could have with this. But for right now, there was just so much research that I was trying to keep up. There's so much differences. They are almost entirely different entities. Everything. It's kind of like as if it was sort of slammed in a weird way. Why is it that so many Eastern culture dragons are praised while Western is just demoralized, demonized? And even then, the elements that they represent are opposite. Their body, their archetype, they're almost opposite. Western dragons are more bulgy, more closer together, more thick than thin. While Western dragons are long and thin. Or Eastern dragons are long and thin, while Western are fat and bulgy. Seems kind of crazy. And the thing is, there's just so many differences. So, which one is better? I would personally say the Eastern one kind of is a little bit better because it had a positive reinforcement to their culture, while Western dragons were just kind of more of a demon, hey, let's blame them for everything that goes wrong. So, I do think that is something that is kind of there, but who knows? I mean, I've done 11 minutes so far of just me trying to talk onto their differences and similarities. This video can go on forever, and I don't want to waste your guys' time. But, in the end, that's all I gotta say. They're very different, and their cultural resemblance is almost very different, that they are essentially just polar opposites. It's a very fun thing to research, and I recommend anyone look them. And again, the whole Hydra thing, maybe you might disagree. What are your thoughts on it? Hopefully that you guys enjoyed this video. I'm still trying to get more acquainted to the environment, and even then, I'm hoping that my speech is becoming a bit better. I'm still new to this, and my speech impediment isn't fully done. I do stutter a lot, and I'm sorry for that. So, thank you for watching my video, and have a good day.